Hey there friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and today I want to show off my Stasis Warlock build I've been using in competitive PvP for Destiny 2 this season, and it makes me feel kind of dirty to share this because it's been absolutely nutty. Now, the key to this build, because it's not anything brand new as far as the majority of this that I've put together, however, the artifact perks are what make it really shine. First off, we have Hail the Storm. This is the absolute key. Shattering encased targets and Stasis Crystal deals increased damage. Shattering Stasis Crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. This does work in PvP. It is fantastic. Once you get that initial shard of ice to spawn, you want to destroy that as quickly as possible if enemies are nearby. If they can get a res, if they are just playing together, if they're peek shotting behind cover, you can destroy that Stasis Crystal and it will damage and slow them, which is very helpful. Then we have Pillar of Ice. Defeating an encased combatant spawns Stasis Crystals, so that's very nice as well. You're going to want to spawn as many of them as possible. To do so, I'm also using Horror Story with Headstone. You can use whatever primary weapon with Headstone you want. However, I prefer an auto rifle because not only can I defeat enemies with it because ARs are pretty good in PvP, but also you can destroy those Stasis Crystals really quickly with them as well, which is also super helpful as well. Then we've got Explosive Personality. I know PvP players hate the away frame grenade launchers, but when you freeze enemies with your stasis turrets, or when you freeze them with Headstone, whatever the case may be, you can oftentimes one-shot them while they're frozen, so this works out really well. It's also really nice for controlling lanes and keeping like snipers and the like from just hard laning you down certain angles, so that's why I do like Explosive Personality personally, although you can use any wayframe. If you want to use a shotgun or a fusion rifle, that's also just fine. Then we've got Dragon's Breath. This is just for fun, to be honest. I don't think this is very good in PvP at all. However, I was using it to get the catalyst and try it out, see how it works, and it was a good time overall. I did enjoy using this. It is hilarious when you do get kills with it. As far as the rest of the build, I am using Osmiomancy for that second Cold Snap grenade, and then in the subclass, I've got Winter's Wrath, the only option, Healing Rift, whatever movement ability that you want there, Penumbral Blast, which again is the only option, and then Cold Snap grenades in order to use your Bleak Watcher. This is going to make you have the Stasis turret, which slows enemies. You'll have two of these. You can use it to control areas. If you're playing something like Countdown on certain maps specifically, it is tremendous for holding down the spot. Once you set a zone, once you are trying to recapture a zone, you can freeze enemies all the time and then defeat them or not and still get the plant or the defusal when you're playing Countdown. So it works out really, really well, and it's something that I'm sure is annoying, but is just so effective that it's hard not to run. Then we've got the other aspect, Ice Flare Bolts. Shattering a frozen target spawns seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. Once again, since you're trying to freeze as many enemies as possible, this just works out really, really well. As far as the fragments, I'm using Fissures, Rime, Bonds, and then Conduction. These are all helpful for when you are freezing enemies and trying to extend the freeze as often as possible and freeze other enemies and the like. So those are just the fragments that I prefer. As far as the mods go, Stasis Siphon, Stasis Target, everything Stasis pretty much on down the list. Grenade Kickstart. So one thing people forget is that the Explosive Personality counts as a grenade launcher for the Blast Radius perk. So you will be generating armor charges frequently if you get final blows with it. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you get a double or something. It's not consistently, but it is something to keep in mind as well. Plus there's other ways obviously to generate armor charges as well. Then we've got Stasis Reserves, Unflinching Stasis Aim, Better Ready Absolution, and then Distribution Outreach. It's kind of whatever you want to run in those other slots, because the mods I don't feel like are super necessary with this build at all. And that's why I don't really go too deep into them. I think they're more important in a PvE build. But as far as the way to play this build, the key is going to be knowing your range and also knowing the map. So you're going to want to use your Bleak Watchers to find an area to cover from enemies like flanking you and hard rushing you, whatever the case may be, because you're going to be really susceptible to shotgunners if you're not careful, especially if they fly at you while you're trying to shoot them with your explosive personality or waveframe grenade launcher or the like. And that's why what you want to do is set up an area with one turret. Don't use both of them because you kind of want to stagger them a little bit, and enemies typically are going to stay away from that area that you're controlling with the stasis turret, or they're all going to turn to shoot it. If you see the enemies turn to shoot your turret, that's your opportunity to get some shots in them, maybe get a pick. And then remember that when you're playing on Warlock, you want to drop the Rift early, not as a reaction. I see far too many people drop their Rift after they're low health, but a grenade, a ability of any sort that is able to tag you is still going to kill you at that point. Maybe even like a Wither Horde or something in the area. So when you're dropping that Rift, you are in danger because the animation does take a minute. So you want to drop the Rift before you get into a gunfight and then start shooting somebody. Right now, Thorn with the Catalyst is very prominent in all kinds of PvP because it's brand new, it's a hot new thing. So having a Rift down to cover yourself as you're taking that burn damage and as somebody is peek shooting you is very advantageous. So that's why I always recommend cordon off an area with one of your Bleak Watchers, drop your Rift, take the gunfight, send out your other Bleak Watcher if you can. If somebody's hard rushing you, that's when you want to use your melee in order to freeze them, to try to then defeat them up close. That's your best bet in that scenario. And overall, yeah, this build is one that I think we've seen time and again in PvP, but also PvE as well. And it's something that I think is just highly effective at controlling areas, which controlling the map is just more important than I think most people realize. People just want to run and gun, and that's fine. But if you want to win in competitive, you also have to play the mode and play the game in the way that the mode kind of pushes you into. In Countdown, where respawns are a thing, you can get a kill, the enemy will spawn on the other side of the map near one of the bombs, for example. They'll be able to plant or defend easily, and then you kind of have to play behind the 8-ball. So that's why controlling the map is so important, and this is the perfect build to do so. Once again, I said I felt dirty using this mostly because it can feel cheesy at times. It's not really my preferred playstyle. I'm more of a Titan melee shoulder bashing type of player, but it is super effective. I do highly recommend trying this out. If you want to climb the ranks in PvP, maybe you're not a traditional PvP player and you want to play a little competitive, this might be one. It's hard to use this in sixes as much just because you have more players shooting your turrets and they don't seem to stay up as long, and you can't really take advantage of one person turning to shoot your turret because you still have 5 others potentially in the area that can take you down. So this is more of a 3v3 build. It does work also very well in Trials of Osiris. It's something I've used it before. It is better than ever, and especially if you're facing a team that likes to kind of clump up, hold hands, and stay together, because you'll freeze them, you'll chain freeze, you will slow and damage them as you're shooting the crystals. And just make sure that you're doing that as well. Make sure you're always shooting those crystals, because I feel like most people will let them rock instead of shooting them, and they won't get the benefit of the slow and the damage this season with those artifact perks. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously, shows you want to see more Destiny 2 content from me going forward. I really do appreciate all the love. My name is Jopa. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.